Hello and welcome to the Daily Space for today, April 2nd, 2019. I am your host, Dr. Pamela Gay, and I am here to put science in your brains. We are happy to say that one day after April Fool's Day, there is astronomy news. And amusingly, some of the, foulest smelling news of the week actually came out on April Fool's, just too late in the day to cover in this show. And by foul smelling, I'm talking about, I'm going to get called on this later, a gas that quite often is claimed to actually have no smell, and that gas is methane. Yesterday in the afternoon, I received a press release discussing how the Mars Express orbiter has managed to detect methane in the atmosphere of Mars, coincidental with the detection of the gas by Curiosity rover on the surface of the planet. Now, this is only one data point. And they analyzed a whole lot of data points, looking to see if they could replicate what was being seen on the surface of the planet with what was being seen in the upper atmosphere of the planet. Now, the fact that most of the data points were actually null results, where Mars Express wasn't able to see those data points, all that really means is Curiosity is somehow detecting methane that isn't making it to the upper levels of the atmosphere. Now, when I say somehow, it isn't to say that Curiosity is doing something weird. It isn't to say that methane shouldn't be going away before it gets to the upper atmosphere. It's to say we don't know how this is happening. And this is why we do science. We're trying to figure out what is going on this and many other super weird worlds in our solar system. Now, one of the reasons that we're super interested in methane on Mars is what it tells us may be going on beneath the surface of the planet. In this illustration, what you can see, if I move over slightly, is you have rocks, gas, and water that are producing methane through normal geologic means. And then that methane is going up, getting stored in what are called clathates. These are ices that have the potential to melt. Now, that's one perfectly reasonable way of creating methane that doesn't involve life, but is still cool because it tells us that this world was geologically active not too long in the past. Now, the other reason that we could have methane on Mars, and this isn't an either or, it could be a both, but the other way that you can get methane on Mars is if you keep looking sideways, there's a little blue circle that says microbes. And those microbes, called methanogens if they're actually there, could be processing the nutrients that they find in the soils on Mars and, letting loose methane in a process not too different from what your own gut bacteria sometimes does. So it could be that, let's just say Curiosity and Mars Express might be detecting the gassy output of living critters on Mars, which is always exciting. This isn't definitive. It's simply a point of data. And every point of data in this particularly scientifically super curiosity-arousing question, it's worth getting excited about. Now, I did start out by saying that methane is smelly, and I've seen no end of arguments about this on the internet. I will agree, natural gas does have stinky stuff added to it so that you can more readily detect a natural gas leak in your home. I leave it for the viewer to debate with those among themselves and Google on whether methane itself has a smell or not. Okay, so moving on to other stories. Looking instead of at worlds, looking at stars, we have an amazing video coming to us. This is done by artists. This is not actual footage. And what this is depicting is early on, there was a, well, massive inflation of our universe, followed by the collisions of a variety of particles during a process called Big Bang nucleosynthesis. The result of this Big Bang nucleosynthesis was the creation of hydrogen, helium, and trace amounts of lithium and beryllium. Now, that lithium is generally destroyed in stars. So when we find a large amount of lithium in a star, it's giving us an upper limit for what may have been there after the Big Bang. Not too long ago, astronomers spotted this star with the name of J00230307. This result that comes to us from telescopes in the Canary Islands wasn't just the discovery of a star. We find those all the time. All you do is look at a patch of sky and, well, expose for a long time and find fainter stars than anyone has found before. Beyond just being the discovery of yet another star, this was the discovery of one of the most lithium-rich stars that has been seen so far. This star is one of those tracers of how much lithium existed after the Big Bang. It isn't a first generation of stars, but it most likely formed out of the remnants of the first generation of supernova that took place early in our universe's history. It's thought that this star was, and I'm going to rerun this video, this star was formed 300 million years after the Big Bang. So this is an old star, not too different from our sun, but it's just continuing to sit there, burning what's in its core. It's still a main sequence star, and it's waiting there as the puzzle piece we needed to once again put a check on these are the ways we know the Big Bang is true, and these are the tiny details that we need to make sure that we're able to replicate with our models. It's not a matter of just getting one data point or 5 data points. It's a matter of every single observation we make needs to help verify that picture. And when we get a data point that doesn't match our understanding of the universe, we need to first start out by going, is this data point valid? There was a case of measuring neutrinos moving faster than the speed of light a number of years ago, and it was traced out to being a problem with a plug not being plugged in all the way. But once we figured out that the data was taken correctly, the next step is to go, how does this inform our theories, our understanding of how we got from that first moment of time to the release of the cosmic microwave background, a period of time we can't observe at all? And how did we get from the release of that cosmic microwave background to this era of large-scale structure that we live in today? We can't watch that process, but we can get snapshots, and this star is an exciting snapshot. So way to go, team. You found that 1 in a billion star. Now, in our final story of the day, there was last night a town hall meeting led by NASA Administrator James Bernstein and Bridenstine, rather. And earlier today, he was testifying on the Hill. You can read lots of accounts of this on Twitter, where a variety of people were watching the live stream of the event. To give you key pieces of information, many of the congressmen and women asked the NASA administrator to reflect on why is it that they're looking at a budget that he submitted that doesn't include any funding for getting to the moon in 5 years. And the basic response was, while he had been in talks with the VP and president about the possibility of an accelerated pathway to the moon, the definitive, yes, we're going to do this, wasn't something that he had when the budget was prepared. They are now in the process of preparing a new NASA budget. This will be submitted on or around April 15th, was the date that he was hinted at. The question coming from a congressional representative was, will we have the budget by April 15th? And his response was basically, that's what we're aiming for. So beyond that, many of the representatives asked, what is the justification for this panicked was a word that was used, this accelerated was a word that was used, this rush was a word that was used, trip to the moon? And the basic answers were things that we've heard before. China has their lunar program. They are aiming to get people onto the surface of the moon. The question was asked, will China also be going to Mars? The administrator said he didn't know. There was also we can. And if we want to get to Mars by 2033, he articulated that it was felt that we had to get to the moon first. And this is one of the great debates that we've seen played out for a number of years. This actually dates back to the second Bush administration. When the question started to be asked, do we go straight to an asteroid, straight to one of the Martian moons, straight to Mars? Do we need to go to the moon at all? And part of the justification of the Deep Space Gateway was it would be a jumping off point to get to Mars, potentially bypassing the moon. Well, in his testimony today, Bridenstine articulated that it was felt that going to the moon was an important part of the pathway for getting to Mars. Now, one of the concerns that has been close to my heart and my livelihood, quite frankly, is how will this to the moon by any means possible mandate affect the NASA ability to carry on its other missions? How will it affect ISS in particular was a question that was answered. And the answer was there would be no impact to ISS. In fact, it was also brought up that by moving forward and developing additional mechanisms for US-based human spaceflight, we would be leaving the era of paying for seats on Russian capsules to go to the ISS, and we'd be entering a new era of partnership where he said cosmonauts would be flying on our spacecraft at no cost, and we'd be flying on their spacecraft at no cost. I want to learn more about that, but that did come up during these discussions. Now, when the idea of what about the science parts of NASA was addressed, the answers were less clear. The answer basically boiled down to we can't get to the moon with the resources we have today, which implied that even if they gutted the science programs, there still wouldn't be enough resources to get to the moon. Many of the Republican representatives responded that they wanted to get her done. They wanted to get NASA to the moon and would be doing what they could to provide the necessary resources. But NASA needs to articulate what those resources are. In addition to that, we did see concerns expressed by Democratic representatives, in particular, the good representative from Michigan, who pointed out that her constituents had been looking forward to seeing one of the Michigan native astronauts going on a female-female spacewalk last week, which didn't happen due to lack of having two spacesuits that were both functional and both fit the size medium women on board the ISS. And after pointing out more spacesuits are needed, please, she addressed the need for NASA to continue its educational activities. There wasn't much pushback about this. Bridenstine did articulate how he was part of many STEM activities when he was growing up. It was during this period that I learned he was born in 1975. He's younger than I am, which disturbs me a little bit, but awesome. Way to go, Gen X. So we're in a position where we have to watch the NASA administrator very carefully walk the tightrope between being an executive appointee, where it is the president who has said, we are going to the moon in 5 years. It is the vice president who is working to see what he can do to make that happen. And now it's Bridenstine's job to detail out the budget and actually try to articulate these needs. There's a lot going on. It is going to be an interesting few weeks as we watch the dust settle as budgets are negotiated and come forward. We continue to watch what the future of WFIRST will be. The mission is continuing to be constructed. The executive branch has asked that it please be canceled. the argument that was articulated by Bridenstine was that WFIRST is essentially a casualty of the James Webb Space Telescope. There was also an Earth spacecraft, an Earth observing spacecraft that was listed as a casualty of the James Webb Space Telescope cost overruns. JWST has taken out a lot of us. It's going to be interesting to see how things evolve. But that's what I was able to glean from watching a lot of this being broadcast, and we are grateful that House hearings like this are open to the public thanks to the internet. And I just want to remind you, there was methane found on Mars. Let's end on that note. I am now going to stick around and take your questions right here live on twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX. For those of you watching this on YouTube, thank you for being here. I am reading all of your comments, and I've heard what you had to say about wishing that we had longer broadcasts, wishing that we went out live on YouTube. We are going to be trying to figure out how to co-stream to both platforms simultaneously, since we are not a partner on Twitch. And we're going to be looking for new ways to do more and more streaming here on Twitch as well. Yesterday, I was online in the evening developing plans for our upcoming 3,650 podcasts later celebration of a decade of 365 days of astronomy. And later today, I will be working on UX development right here on Twitch. And speaking of things to come, oh my God, Thursday. Thursday is going to kill Annie Wilson and I in a delightful way as we live stream all the science. So if you're looking for something to do on Thursday, just tune into CosmoQuest X and sit here because all the science will be coming. It starts, that's the wrong slide. It starts at 7 a.m. basically with the launch of the Roscosmos Progress Resupply mission. This is followed, thank you, Trekker Kev. This is followed by, and let me turn the dog cam on. I'm trying to turn the dog cam on. This is followed by the Ariane mission to go get him. There, go get him. This is followed by the Ariane Space Communications Satellite launch. We will be covering both the launch and the docking of the Progress capsule. In addition to those two launches, later in the day, Hayabusa 2 is going to drop an anti-tank explosive on the asteroid Ryugu, because of course it's going to. And somewhere in the mix, the Beresheet lunar lander is going to get itself not onto the surface of the moon, but it's going to get itself into orbit around the moon. So all science is happening Thursday. I'm not sure who said April 4th is the day, but April 4th is the day. And it kind of makes sense. April is Global Astronomy Month. If this is a new idea to you, check out everything going on with our partners, Astronomers Without Borders. They are running an entire month of events. And celebrate space, everyone. So once again, this has been The Daily Space. We come to you live most Mondays through Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is now, thank you, Daylight Savings Time, 6 p.m. London time, 10 a.m. Pacific. Join either myself or Annie Wilson as we bring you a quick update on all that is new in astronomy and space science. We also bring you the Sunday Science Hour, where Annie works to show you how all those amazing Hubble Space Telescope color images are brought into existence out of all the black and white images that are acquired through different filters by that great orbital observatory. We also bring you launches, landings, and everything in between. So give us a follow and find out when we're going live to put science in your brain. We are a production of the Planetary Science Institute, working in collaboration with Youngstown State University. Thank you so much. Thank you for the bits. Here, you want these? Go. We are here thanks to your donations, your Patreon subscriptions, and your bits. So thank you for everything that you do. You make this science possible. And now I am going to answer your questions. Please, if you haven't already, at me. It makes it easier for me to find them. So scrolling up towards the beginning of this episode to see what all we have. Q23 asks, shouldn't there be traces of the microbes on Mars on the surface? Not necessarily. The surface of Mars is a nasty environment. It's getting bombarded with ultraviolet light from the sun. It's super low density atmosphere, so the pressures on a microbe would be really low. And it's just brutal in so many different ways. But all you have to do is dig down a few centimeters and things become a lot more stable. There's the potential for briny water beneath the surface, salty, salty, salty water beneath the surface. And so it's quite possible that there's life beneath the surface that has never made it to the surface. Here on our own planet, we find life that is designed for very specific places, very specific life niches. It's found while we dig through ice, while we dig mines, when we take samples of extremely hot, extremely acidic, extremely radioactive materials. So it's possible that there's life on Mars beneath the surface that could never exist on the surface. So Hanny's Ververb asks, do scientists expect certain levels of lithium in stars of certain ages? No. And this is one of the more confusing things. You can have two stars that are the same age, and one has the maximum amount of metals that are possible for a star of that age, and the other one is super metal poor. This is because there are still pockets of gas and dust, well, just gas, no dust, that don't have that much material mixed into them from subsequent generations of stars. So if you have pockets of essentially untouched stuff to form new stars, you can make new stars that don't have a lot of metals in them. Now, the other side of that is, though, you're not going to find super old stars that have a high metal content. So there is a limit as a function of time to how much metal you expect to see in stars. Now, because the largest stars do live and die rather rapidly, we started getting metal-rich stars fairly early in the universe, just not a lot of them. So they've increased in number over time. It's not an equally mixed up universe out there, people. So Veronica Kira asks, do you think that the U.S. can provide transport to ISS for a comparable cost to Russian Soyuz transport? I think we can actually do it for less because we have a competitive environment with Elon Musk's work as well as what's been done by Blue Origin. Blue Origin does have a bit to do to catch up, but because they have reusable components that save 10 to 20% on the launch, those reusable components do help bring down the cost, and they're also using completely modern materials and technologies, which means they weigh less with an added safety factor. So when you factor in modern materials that weigh less, reusable components, you're driving down the weight and the cost, which is also a factor of the weight. So you're taking the costs down because it weighs less, and you're taking the cost down because you're using better stuff, basically. So, yeah. So Bad Panda Bear asks, can we use our existing EVA suits on the moon, or would we need new ones? We totally need new ones. For so many different reasons. So on the surface of the moon, you have to worry about lunar dust, which is essentially unrounded shards of tiny bits of glass. That super sharp sand that you have on volcanic beaches in Hawaii is soft and satiny compared to regolith on the moon. And so lunar dust is a concern. Weight is a concern. Thermodynamics is a concern. There's so many things that are a concern. And the spacesuits that are being used on the ISS are just old and best described as crunchy and needing to go to Goodwill, but for spacesuits. Uh, there is no one who truly needs that kind of a spacesuit to help them survive. In fact, it might kill them. So that was a really bad analogy. They're just crunchy and in need of going to a museum. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, so let's see what other questions we have. Veronica Cure asks, what would make it easier to co-stream? More Twitch viewers, funding, etc. So I assume you're asking what would make it easier to co-stream between Twitch and YouTube so that our content is going out on both simultaneously. Well, the number one thing is I need to figure out how to use software called Wireframe, and then I need to figure out how to pay for it. I've downloaded a 30-day free trial, and Wireframe is designed to allow higher quality streaming and on multiple platforms simultaneously. It does have a many $100 cost. So if I can make it work, there's going to have to be okay, can anyone pitch in to help me actually afford this? But we're going to try it. We're going to see if it works. And if it works, I'm hoping that enough of you will like it that if everyone kicks in a cup of coffee, we can afford the software needed to go out on multiple platforms simultaneously. But first I have to figure out the software. We'll see. I'm going to try and do it today and tomorrow so that we'll have it for Thursday. I don't know if that will happen. Okay, scrolling to see what other questions we have. Hanny's Vorverb asks, if red dwarfs are more prevalent than other stars, does that mean that smaller brown dwarfs should be even more prevalent? We don't know. We don't know. So there's what's called the initial mass function of stars. And the initial mass function has bends and wiggles in it. It basically boils down to you don't get a lot of big stars, you get a lot of tiny stars, and then brown dwarfs confuse all of us. Because they're so hard to see, we don't have a lot of good experimental results giving us a volume-limited sample. Ideally, what you want to do is take a big volume of space, big enough that we can start to get a solid understanding of how many of the more rare stars there are. And then within that volume, count everything. And that will tell us what is the ratio of brown to red to stars like the sun to the blue giants. Brown dwarfs are hard to see, so we don't have a really statistically solid understanding of how prevalent they are. Stay tuned. We need more data. We're getting there. Okay, scrolling down. Crispy Fried Man asks, are we possibly looking at the first rumblings of a new space race? Sort of. The question is, who thinks that there's a space race going on? I think China's just kind of sitting there going, we would work and play with you if you'd let us. Hi, we're developing a green economy. Come play with us. There was a fabulous Doonesbury cartoon a couple of weeks ago where it was pointed out that currently China is spending trillions and trillions of dollars to connect their major cities with surrounding nations through railway. They're lowering the barriers to enter their country. And while there are a lot of issues, human rights issues, privacy issues, so many issues that need to be taken into consideration when interacting with China. It's also a nation that is working to evolve the technologies necessary for a greener economy. It's developing 5G technology. So when we say that we have a new space race with China, what we're actually kind of saying is, we're going to say you're our enemy. We're not going to work and play with you. We're going to work and play with Russia. And if we said no to both, this would be a different kind of argument, I think. But because we're in a partnership with Russia in the name of world peace, and we're refusing to work with China because of human rights issues, there's a logical contradiction there. So I'm not sure who is racing whom. And in part, this kind of feels like some of the college rivalries where a small college will say, they're our biggest rival. And the bigger college will be like, oh, hi, as they casually thump them. I don't know who's casually thumping whom. I don't know. This is the day for terrible analogies. Yeah, this is beyond my ability. This is beyond science. I'm going to go back to keeping it simply science here on our show. So Nebula Cluster, who didn't at me, but I still saw your question mark. Nebula Cluster says, can you tell us about the different stories coming from India and NASA on the satellite space junk danger to the ISS? I haven't seen enough coming out of India to really say what their side of the story is. For those of you who don't know, last week India blew up one of its own satellites that was in orbit 300 miles up. This was an altitude beneath the altitude of the International Space Station. However, in the process of blowing up a satellite, you scatter debris to a variety of different orbits. Over time, all of that debris will get frictionally slowed down. There's still enough particles of atmosphere at that altitude that it creates drag on the bits. All of those bits will eventually tumble down through our atmosphere, burning up inconsequentially. But until then, some of these pieces are going to migrate into higher orbits like the one the International Space Station is, and not just like the one the ISS is in, but the orbit the ISS is in. And there is an increased danger of collisions in the coming months. It will increase over time as those pieces go to the higher orbits and then decrease again as things fall out of the atmosphere. In general, don't blow things up in orbit. Okay, moving on. So Larry Weird and Proud asks, has anything detected primordial beryllium? So the issue with beryllium, if I remember correctly, and please fact check me on this one because I'm remembering back to exams in graduate school on this. If I remember correctly, beryllium is created enough other ways that it isn't possible to tell what beryllium is primordial and which beryllium was created through subsequent nucleosynthesis, which is frustrating. But fact check me. So M. Sierra Whisk says, for someone looking to delve deeper into astrophysics and has done the deep dive on both math and physics, what direction would you suggest in terms of coding? Are you talking software coding here? Unsure of how to start learning, i.e. what language? So the software language of astronomy is Python. I say that regrettably as someone who grew up on C and numerical methods in C and really doesn't like Python, but I'm learning Python. Python is fine. We are actually in the process of translating all of CosmoQuest into Python right now. And I have software I need to write for the OSIRIS-REx mission. I may do that on stream today, but I'm going to do it in PHP because I'll like it if I do it in PHP. Yeah, Python. Beyond that, it depends on what you want to do. This is a much more complicated conversation. We discuss this periodically over on the CosmoQuest Discord. Go ahead, give it a join, ping me over there, and I'd be happy to talk. But I need to know more about what makes you happy. What things are you wanting to explore? And with that information, I can give you more intelligent responses than Python. Scrolling. Henny's Vorverb asks, is that the cost wireframe one time or a license? It's a software license. I don't know how long it's good for. You are watching that screen. Let me switch which view I'm on so that you don't watch me Google because that would suck. So I'm looking at the costs. Hold on, wireframe, duration of, whoa, can't type duration of license. By wireframe, no. I don't know. so many things out there called wireframe. Um, Hold on one moment. I'm just trying to at least find its website so that I can share it out with you. Wirecast. Am I giving the wrong name? Wirecast. I was giving the wrong name. I'm a terrible person. So Wirecast. So Wirecast comes from Telestream. They currently have 30% off of new licenses through April 13th. Buy Wirecast. So I'm assuming that it's a multi-year license because it says includes 1 year of standard support. So when a license includes 1 year of standard support, that usually but not always implies it's a multi-year license. So what we're looking at is essentially a $500 cost. And that's if we buy it while it's on sale. I also need to reach out to them and find out if they have a nonprofit discount. So it is not cheap software is the moral, but it would allow us to stream on multiple platforms at once. So I'm going to look into it. I'm going to figure it out. Hello, Kristen. Okay. So to give you guys an idea of the finances around here, for those of you who are new, thank you for the sub, Fenring. This has been many, many months. Okay, I need to get the dogs back up, don't I? Okay, let's, too many screens. I have too many screens. How do I do this? I want that. I want to transition to that and throw the Cheerios. And Stella is the laziest dog ever. Thank you, Fenring. That's 10 months. This means you are actually a full-term Twitch baby because things they don't tell you is pregnancy is actually 40 weeks. So thank you so much. And there are the dogs slowly eating Cheerios in the background. So we are here thanks to you. CosmoQuest was for many years, starting in the end of 2011 and running up until December 31st of 2018, funded entirely by NASA. We do continue to have funding from the OSIRIS-REx mission to do very specific tasks for the spacecraft. We are working on the science side of the mission, and we're developing software that is being used by the scientists. Beyond that, though, we lost all of our funding December 31st. Back in October, I gave notice to my former employer after a variety of things and stuff. And 3 days after I gave notice saying I'd be switching to the Planetary Science Institute, NASA zeroed my funding. But my team is happy. And we are all at the Planetary Science Institute, and we're a smaller team. We don't have full-time jobs anymore, but we're respected. We're respected by our employers. We're respected by you, and we're doing things that we believe in. And this is because of your donations. We have so far brought in through a funding drive, through advertisements on Astronomy Cast, through Patreon, across all of our different programs, enough money that I think I can keep everything going through the end of June. And every month as we bring in more money, that date gets pushed out a little bit further. I'm currently looking for funding that I can apply for through the National Science Foundation. And the thing that is really hurting is most of the funding calls are actually due in the fall, where you get your funding 3 to 6 months to a year later. So we lost all of our funding at the wrong point in the funding cycle. But we're working to find ways to keep going. And it's nice to work someplace where invoices get paid quickly, staff have all of their HR paperwork taken care of professionally, and so many other things that tell us we are respected. Sometimes that matters more than having a full paycheck. So I'm probably going to earn 30% this year of what I earned last year. So this is where you see me also doing a lot of artwork, trying to sell my artwork. But Susie's doing okay because of you. Annie's doing okay enough, not really, but there's going to be a ticker on Thursday as we stream our butts off all day in hopes that we can bring in enough money to pay her salary for the entire day. You guys are helping us go. You guys are helping us go. So we're hanging in here. We still have Tanner. He's half-time instead of full-time. We have a bit of Colin so that he can do some graphic design for us. We have a bit of Tim so that he can keep his hands in the code. It's not what we had, but we're still going. So thank you. And that's really all I can say is thank you. Any of you who've ever said, yeah, Matt and Andreas are gone. I'm super proud. I'm proud of Matt, but I'm super proud of Andreas because he is now working on the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope via Princeton and is still living here in St. Louis. We're going to be working to get him back involved again. I just needed to get my head on straight, and he needed to get up to speed on his new project. He's running Astronomy on Tap here in St. Louis. He is an awesome dude. Hey, Ed Thompson. So Matt is currently working. Thank you, Veronica. You want this? You want this? Go! Wow, does Stella not care? Matt is currently working on one of the survey grants. That's research in small bodies. I don't remember what survey actually stands for. Out of the Planetary Science Institute while looking for his first, hopefully, faculty or instructor position. So Larry Weird and Proud is asking, what is that new mic? This is a Shure 51. It is super cool looking, and I really like how it's mounted because I'm not going to do it now because I'm using it. It flexes and it also packs up super tiny. This is the mic I had with me when I was in Vienna for the International Astronomical Union. It was a purchase that I made after I got back from Israel, because on the way to and from Israel, my H4n by Zoom kept getting identified as a taser, and I got detained in Amman while switching airplanes, and it scared me so much that I then proceeded to be revisited by my lunch and my breakfast and possibly all of the prior several days worth of food, the entire flight from Amman to Chicago. And that was a sufficiently traumatic experience that Andreas, I actually just gave him my H4n. So he has an H4n now. And I got this. Yeah, the H4 is great unless you're traveling through airports with it. So this can also be attached into an iPhone or an iPad and be used that way. So it's just, I like it. And it sounds good. So. Okay. You now know TMI about me and my journey from Amman to Chicago. Yeah. Anyways, other things. I think that's it. We are here because of you. Thank you for what you do to support us. I will be back later today doing software development right here on Twitch. I agree, Fenring, to more trains, less airports. However, I don't think there is a train track that will get me from Amman, Jordan to Chicago, the United States. Yeah, that's it. Go forth, have a fabulous morning, evening, or afternoon. Play Ticket to Ride. I am going to raid over to somebody. I don't have Discord open. Any suggestions of who to raid would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to find someone who's doing interesting content, and the place I'm looking is the Learning Fellowship. So EJ is currently streaming massive multi-level factory build Addiction Simulator 2019. Thank you, Bad Panda. Go get it. Stella actually stood up. Okay. So we have EJ. We also have Oh Bother. So who do you want to stream over to, folks? We have EJ, who's doing massive multi-level factory build, playing the game Satisfactory. And we have Oh Bother, who is wiring a 3D printer, sub to get your name laser etched on the wall. Let me know what you would like, and I will cut over to that. But you need to type in your opinions, or I am going to guess. So type those in while I am running the credits. And once again, have a fabulous morning, evening, afternoon, wherever in the world you may be. And if the weather allows, go outside, look up, and remember, it's one planet with one stars. And I'm currently procrastinating because our credits reformatted themselves spontaneously. Okay, they're fixed. So remember, we're one people sharing one sky. I'll see you all on the other side, everyone. Bye-bye.